Hey Cyclone, sorry I couldn't be there today, but that doesn't stop us from doing math. So I am going to walk you through some examples of mixed numbers today. I'm going to change kind of what this structure looks like. We are not going to really address method 2. I'm just going to refer to one part of that. And then we're going to continue with the method that we learned in the last class, which is using improper fractions. So here's what I want to do. Before we jump into improper fractions, which is what we talked about yesterday, I want us to look at this top piece of method 2. What this is saying is we want to kind of use our brains, okay, to estimate what our answer is going to be. In order to do that, we're going to imagine our numbers without fractions. So if I come over here to negative 1 4/5 minus 2 1/2, let's just say we could scratch out, okay, our fraction pieces. Get rid of those for a minute. So I really have negative 1 minus 2. Well, how would we do that? So some of you are probably thinking, oh, that's keep, change, change. It's additive inverses. So I'm going to keep the negative 1 plus the negative 2, which would be great. What am I going to get when I do negative 1 plus negative 2? Hopefully you're saying negative 3. This is just an estimation of what my answer should look like when we're done. It should be somewhere around the negative 3. Okay, maybe negative 4, maybe negative 2, somewhere in between. This is just an estimate. Kind of tells us if we're in the right direction. Okay, that's a really handy step. Okay, so it tells us A, that my answer is going to be negative, and what my answer should kind of be. All right, now let's actually get back to the real math so we can see how that kind of plays a part. Here we go. Step 1 tells us to change the mixed number into an improper fraction. So again, that's kind of like that check mark method. We're going to go through that. So 1 times 5 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. So this is going to be negative 9/5 minus 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, 5/2. All right. Now, before we can add these, we need common denominators. So if you were to list out your your least common multiples, we'd have 5, 10, 15, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Hopefully you already know that our common denominator here is going to be 10. So from 5 to get to 10, I'm going to multiply by 2, numerator and denominator. On my other fraction, I'm going to multiply by 5, numerator and denominator. When I find my equivalent fractions, I end up with negative 18/10 minus 25/10. Now, just like our rule that we used over here with integers, we use additive inverses. We're going to do that same thing over here. So I'm going to keep the negative 18/10, add the opposite, so adding a negative. Since I have two negative numbers and I'm adding them together, just means I'm going 18 in the hole and I'm going 25 more into the hole. So I'm just adding these together and say, how negative am I really? This is going to give us negative 43/10. Now this would be an acceptable answer. You can't simplify that anymore. However, you can put it into a mixed number. If we're going to do that, we would basically ask ourselves, how many groups of 10 can I take from 43? I can take 4 whole groups, and I would have 3 left over. Don't forget that that needs to be negative. All right, so if you have any questions over that, go ahead and pause, clear it up with someone near you, go back home and watch it again just to make sure you know that process. We're going to be doing some more examples, but we really want to make sure we're doing this top step of method 2, just to get a good estimation, kind of have an idea of what mathematically am I really doing, and then you can follow these steps up at the top. So we're not going to do 1B because you can see that that's the same question as 1A. So we're going to skip over here to number 2. Before I do anything, we're going to kind of pretend like we don't have those fractions anymore. This would be like saying 1 minus 2. How would we go ahead and go about doing that problem? Hopefully you say, oh, it's subtractions. We're going to do additive inverses. So add the opposite. Then you can see I have a positive and a negative, so they kind of cancel one another out a little bit, leaving me with -1. So this tells me that my answer should be negative, and it should be somewhere around the value of -1. Okay, this is just a good estimation strategy. Now let's go back to the actual problem. We're going to start with those improper fractions. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 3 leaves us with 7/4, minus 2 times 8 is 16, plus 3, 19/8. We need a least common denominator. In this case, it will be 8. Which means I'm only changing one of my fractions. The 19/8 will stay the same. To here, 4 times what gives me 8? Hopefully you're saying 2. So times 2 times 2. Rewriting the problem, we have 14 over 8 minus 19 over 8. Just like we did in that estimation problem, we're going to do additive inverses, so add the opposite. We're going to go plus a negative. We already know my answer should be negative from my practice up at the top. I also know that when I have a positive being added to a negative, I'm actually subtracting. So 19 minus 14 happens to be -5 over 8. This would be your final answer. All right, at this point, if you need to go back and watch any of that over again, go ahead and get out your own iPad with your Google Classroom. I am going to go ahead and explain all the practice problems on the back. So if you flip your paper over, you'll see these 4 questions. I would like you to try them and then check back on the video, whether it be on your own iPad or with the teacher as a whole. I will explain the process, but I want you to try them on your own first. So the video should now be paused, and you are working independently and quietly to try and get these answers on your own. Good luck to you. All right, so I'm going to do my method of if I didn't have these, we're going to see what that problem would look like. So -9 plus -1. We see they're both negative, so I can add them together. That would give me -10. So my answer should be somewhere around -10, should also be negative. All right, so now when we go back to the original problem, we're going to start with our improper fractions. All right, so 9 times 7 is 63, plus the 5 on top leaves us with 68/7. Don't forget to write the negative with that. Plus 1 times 3 is 3 plus 1, so -4/3. Now, I still need to find a least common denominator. Our least common denominator in this case would be 21. So 7 times 3 is 21, so I'll do the same to the top. 3 times 7 is 21, so I'll do that to the top. All right, so rewriting. I understand that some of you may not know what 68 times 3 is, so I expect to see some work on the side. So we come over here, 68 times 3, be 24 there, 18 plus 2, 204. I'm going to have negative 204 over 21 plus negative 28 over 21. Similar to what we did at the top, 2 negatives added together, I get to add them and keep them negative. So I'm going to do 204 plus 28. I know my answer is going to be negative, so negative 232 over 21. This could be your final answer, but we're going to put it into a mixed number. You'd have to do some long division with that, but it would be negative 11 and 1/21. Either one of those would be acceptable. All right, moving on to the next question. All right, if I were to pretend like we didn't have fractions here, so leave me with 5. Now I could minus or cross this 7/8 out, and it would be maybe 5 minus 0, which would put me around 5. You could also round that up to 5 minus 1, which would put you around 4. So we're looking somewhere between 4 and 5 as our final answer. Notice it is positive either way we look at it, so we should have a positive answer between 4 and 5. All right, so let's go back to our original and start our improper fractions. This would give us 5 times 10 is 50 plus 3, so 53/10 minus 7/8. That's not a mixed number, so I don't need to change it. Now all I need is common denominators. So my least common denominator between 10 and 8 would be 40. So 10 times 4, so I'm going to do that to both sides. 8 times 5 gives me 40, so I'm going to do that to both. Rewriting my new fraction. Again, some of you may have to do 53 times 4 on the side. That's okay. 53 times 4, 212. So I have 212/10 minus 35. Oops, sorry, that's 40ths. Minus 35/40. That's just a simple subtraction problem. 212 minus 35. Again, all that work, I should expect to see some side work as well. This is all work that you can be doing on your own. 177, so that leaves us with 177/40. Now, it's hard to tell if that matches our answer from up here without turning it into a mixed number. So if we turn that into a mixed number, I know that 40 can go into 16, or 4 can go into 16 4 times. So I know I'm going to have a whole number of 4. That would be 160. Subtract that from that 177 leaves me with 4 and 17/40. Either one is acceptable, but the mixed number allows us to check to see if it corresponds with our estimation from the beginning. All right, so we're going to move on to the next problem. Again, we're going to use that estimation piece. So that would be, if I didn't have my fractions, I would have 7 plus -4. Hopefully by now we would recognize those are different signs, so I would actually subtract them, giving me a +3 as my answer. So this is what my answer should be positive, and it should be somewhere around 3. Let's go ahead and do our improper fractions. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2, 23/3. Plus 4 times 9 is 36, plus 5, 41. Don't forget the negative, over 9. I need my least common denominator. Between 3 and 9 is going to be 9, which means I'm changing my 3, and I'm going to multiply that and its numerator by 3. Again, if you need to do the side math over here, we're going to say 23 times 3. So we're going to rewrite that fraction as 69/9 plus -41/9. Same as our estimation problem up here. We have a positive and a negative. So I'm actually going to subtract the two numbers. My answer should be positive since the 69 is larger. So if you need to do the side work, we're going to do 69 minus 41, which leaves us with 28/9. If you turn that into an a mixed number to see if it matches our estimation of 3, 9 goes into 28 3 times, which is 27, leaving us with 1 left over. 3/9 is pretty close to our estimation of 3. So we're doing well. One last problem, guys. All right, on the estimation on this piece, 12/15 isn't quite a whole number, so I'm just going to round it to 1 minus -4. Hopefully we know additive inverses says add the opposite. So I really just have 1 plus 4, which is 5. So my answer should be around +5. Let's go ahead and do our improper fractions. Notice we only need to do it with one of them this time. So my 12/15 is going to stay the same. And now that we noticed additive inverses, I'm just going to go and do that from the beginning, and that really just means we're adding. 4 times 10 is 40 plus 7, so 47 tenths. I need to find my least common denominator, which in this case is going to be 30. So 15 times 2, 10 times 3. And go ahead and find your new answers. We would have 24 over 30 plus 141 over 30. And again, if you need to do that math on the side, 47 times 3. I don't expect any of that to be memorized. Okay, you can verify it that way. And then we're just going to add these together. Get 165 over 30. This can be simplified before it's made into a mixed number. 5 can go into both of those. 5 goes into 165 33 times. Oh, and 5 goes into 36 times. There we go. This can then still be simplified by 3, which would give you 11 halves. This would be an acceptable answer, or if you turn that into a mixed number, you would have 5 1/2. Also an acceptable answer. All right, good job. Pat yourselves on the back. It's a lot of work, but you did it. Don't forget to work on your practice test that is due Tuesday. Have a great weekend, guys.